Hey folks, Chris Gordon here for part 3 of the Abigail's Crossing intro. And today I'm going to be talking about the section that deals primarily with what I call arpeggio partials. We talked a little bit about this in the last session when I was showing you those cool Yngwie arpeggios that went like this. Those diminished shapes, and they are what I consider partials. Today's section deals primarily with this part right here. Okay. The reason I call them partials is because they deal primarily with 3-string arpeggios, which are partial strings to the neck, I guess, instead of the usual 4, 5, 6, and sometimes the 7-string arpeggios that I do when I am playing 7-string. Which actually brings me to the reason why I want to explain a little bit about why I'm using this particular guitar today. This guitar, story behind it, is known affectionately as Maud for any of my students or any of my musical colleagues. They all know the name of this guitar, and it acquired the name because of the unbelievably cool shade of mauve that it is. And I acquired the guitar about 10 years ago at a music shop, local music shop, and it had been neglected. Been kind of standing there neglected for a number of years, and I can certainly attribute that only to the color. Nobody wanted to be caught on stage with a guitar of this color, I guess. I don't know. I neglected it as well and didn't really pay it any mind, but eventually got around to plugging it in and was immediately taken by the sound and the feel of the guitar. It just felt like I had been playing it all my life. Because of the color, I got a really great discount. The guy had it there a long time and was happy to just get it out of his store. So I paid a very nice discounted rate for the guitar and walked out with it. Immediately went to a recording session, actually, and it was such an asset in the studio in terms of its tone and its the way it sat in the mix that even to this day, 10 years later, in my studio, it is the primary guitar I record with, because once it's laid down, it's minimal tweaking, if any, to get it to sit in the mix. It just really sits in any mix very well. It's been a guitar that's been not only in the studio with me, but pretty much almost every gig I've done, which I've lost count over the past number of years. And because of that, you might notice this neck with the headstock here. This isn't the original neck, obviously. The original neck is right here. This is the neck that came with the guitar when I bought it, or that was on the guitar when I bought it, rosewood. And this was a configuration that I used for, 8 years or so, maybe even 9 years. Toured with it, recorded with it, you name it. And the frets just eventually just wore down almost to the neck. It's almost, I mean, if I put this neck back on right now, it's like playing a fretless. They're that worn down, and anything that is not that worn down is dented in real bad and causes all kinds of fretting issues. So I was getting ready for a show one night and panicked at the idea that I wasn't really going to be able to play Maud that night, and decided that I was going to swap the necks out. I have a left-handed Strat that was hanging here in the studio that I had used for occasional recording sessions, and just swapped the neck out an hour before the show, and it worked great. Of course, it was also a conversation piece when I showed up to the show with it. But it's worked great. It sounds good. It feels good, and I'm going to ship this off to a guitarist and an amazing guitar tech named Stuart Bryant. Look him up on YouTube and check out his guitar playing. He's a phenomenal blues guitar player. But he does amazing things with guitars, and he has set up all my guitars since I can't remember when. And actually he ended up putting these really cool vintage tuners on this particular neck back right before I left on the road back in '06, and they were awesome. And so he does great work. So that's the story behind this guitar. But the real reason that I'm using this guitar today is because not only did I write Abigail's Crossing on this guitar, I wrote the entire album on this guitar. So this guitar has it's a very there's a very cool connection with this instrument, and I wanted to utilize it for this part, not only for that reason, but for other technical reasons. I remember when I recorded the original demo, it was 20 minutes before my daughter was born, the very last riff that I played. So the whole idea behind the song, and of course utilizing the guitar, has kind of a deep personal reason for me. But the other reason is the neck rather is on a radius. As on a lot of Strats, the neck is on this kind of radius rather than flat like the Ibanez's and a lot of Gibsons. And the reason, the cool thing about having the radius is, you know, it's really cool for bending. You have to keep the action higher, so it actually improves the tone a little bit. What you sacrifice is a lot of those really cool, crazy left-hand or two-handed tapping licks, and of course the 7-string or my Ibanez's are great for it. It's like, you know, it's like driving a Ferrari. You know, you're just racing up and down almost effortlessly. The Strat takes a little bit more work to get anything to get to that kind of velocity. But the great thing about the radius on these fretboards, and I have a couple of Strats with this kind of radius, is that when I'm using these arpeggios, especially these partials, when I play a note and I take the pressure off the note, not even my finger away from the string, that note is done. It's gone, you know. And the great thing about that is that it becomes a little more natural feeling to get the separation between the notes when you're doing arpeggios, especially partials, because the nature of a lot of these partials is that they're rapidly repeating, like, and it locked into a certain meter, so you want to keep that as tight as you can, and it really helps. And you know, the overall tone feels really good, and it also, to me, feels a lot like the neck of a violin with the radius line, because, you know, violin is the instrument that I wish I had pursued, but I'm very happy that I play the guitar. I love the instrument. But the idea of these kinds of necks get me closer to that feeling of a violin, which is what I ultimately go for in my head. So let's get down to business here with the with this lick of the week, if you will. The first one here starts on B minor, and I'm going to start on the F sharp of the high E string, and I'm going to go to the D on the high E string. I'm going to start with the downstroke, up on the D, up on the B, and up on the F sharp. So that's the descending pattern. So let me talk about this for a minute. This is a good warm-up. This will help a little bit. This is something I got from a Paul Gilbert video years ago, and it's a partial arpeggio idea where you start with the down and you do 3 ups, and we're just going to repeat that. So we're going to put the septuplet idea aside for a minute and just stick with an 8th note or even a 16th note idea, and we're going to repeat it like this. And to really bring that point home of the separation of the notes, let me clean up the tone a little bit and use just the percussiveness of the pick on the strings. So again, my pick is falling to each string as I go up, but there's that rhythmic thing that I was talking about before. So okay, so let's go back to the notes, shall we? So we do this 8th note idea: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and let me put a variation in there just to keep it interesting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a 40 and a. So there you go. There's a nice little warm up. Let's do that a little bit more tempo. Didn't see that one coming, but there's a whole other variation. Maybe I'll post that. I'll break that variation down in another post. All right, let's get back to the septuplet idea. Here is the lick. So I started, as I said, I started here on the F sharp to the D, the B on the B string, the F sharp on the G string. When I reascend this, I'm going to do something that's not very efficient, but it's just the way it works for me. I'm going to play a downstroke on the B and an upstroke on the D. So I basically kick that into an alternate picking lick. Something that Steve Morse might do. Okay, when I reascend it, I don't return to the F sharp, I actually go to the E. So if you're thinking harmonically against the B minor harmony, that would be the 4th or the 11th, depending on how you're viewing your intervals. Okay, from there I'm going to go to the E minor, starting on the G note of the high E string to the E. It's a down up. Matter of fact, the picking is going to be exactly the same as it was in the previous one there. Then B on the B string, G on the G string. But when I reascend, I don't go back to the G. I'm going to go back to the F sharp, or go to the F sharp rather. And if in the E minor harmony, that's either the 2nd or the 9th, again, depending on how you're looking at your intervals. Okay, so that's the E minor idea. So let's put those two together. I'm going to return to the B minor. And then from there, I'm going to launch into those 5-string sweeps. A major, D major. And we've talked about these 5-string sweeps before. But as a recap, I start on the high E, on the E note of the high E, with a down, C sharp on the high E with an up, A on the B, up, E on the G string with an up, C sharp on the D string with an up on the A string, on the A note of the A string, and then I'm going to pull off to that E on the same string, the A string. And then I'm going to bring that pinky back down and start with my downstroke. So I've got this. C sharp there again, I'm reascending, E, A, C sharp. And when I get to that C sharp, actually I'm going to hit that with an upstroke, so check this out. Down, 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 up. Purpose for that is my next arpeggio is starts on a downstroke, which is D, F sharp to the D, A on the B string with an upstroke, F sharp on the G string with an upstroke, D on the D string with an upstroke, A on the A string with an upstroke, pulling off to F sharp, down on that A again, reascending to the D, F sharp, these are all downstrokes, A, until I get to that high E string, I'm going to use another upstroke, so you get that. Alright, now you can pick and pull off like, you can use legato, whatever works for you. This is just the way I do it. The reason I do it that way is I like to hear the snap on the string. I kind of punch those strings a little bit. So again, that's just the sound that I go for, but feel free to experiment and come up with your own ways. And feel free to post them. I'd like to see what you guys are all doing with them. Guys and girls are all doing with them. So that's the section. Let me play it first a little slower and then up the tempo. Okay, now a little more up the tempo. Alright, so there's that section of Abigail's Crossing. Stay tuned for part 4. I actually could have included part 4 in this because it just basically repeats that section again. But what it does after that is it goes into this descending septuplet alternate picking lick. And I haven't really talked a lot about alternate picking, especially in scale-like formations. So I wanted to save that for next week. So in the interim, shed on this. I hope it sparks some ideas of your own. And also I hope it helps tweak techniques that you're already using or just beginning to explore. Again, thanks for all the great support and all that stuff. and I'm looking forward. I got a lot of great things happening this summer. New project about to be announced and all that good stuff. So stay tuned for that, and I will probably be announcing it on the next post. So talk to you all soon. Enjoy.